Emma had always worked her way up the ranks, but when the boss promoted Jessica, she was heartbroken. This was not the time to keep quiet. She knew that if she kept quiet, her hard work would never count. One day, she handed in her resignation to the boss, but there was something more to it. Would that move turn the boss's world upside down? Was it just a resignation, or the beginning of a bigger threat? Find out what happened when Emma decided to stand up for her rights. I had always believed that hard work spoke for itself. Emma, was the type of person who would stay late, put in the extra hours, and go above and beyond for the company. It wasn't that I expected a reward, but deep down, I always hoped my dedication would be recognized. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened that day. I was called into my boss's office with the usual smug smile on his face. He had this way of acting like he was about to give you the world, only to take it away in the most unexpected way. "Congratulations, Emma," he said, his voice dripping with false warmth. "Your hard work has finally paid off, but we've decided to promote Jessica instead. She's more of a team player." Those words hit me like a ton of bricks. Jessica. She hadn't even worked as hard as I had. She was always on her phone, always disappearing when things got tough. And yet, here she was, getting the promotion I had earned. My stomach turned, and for a moment, I couldn't find my voice. I nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Thank you for the opportunity," I said, my voice steady, though inside, a storm was brewing. I could feel the anger rising within me, but I swallowed it down, determined not to let him see how much this hurt. But what he didn't know was that in my hand, hidden in my bag, was something he never saw coming. A resignation letter, yes, but not just any letter. Inside it were documents that could bring everything crashing down. I turned to leave, my heart racing. I wasn't sure what I would do next, but I knew one thing: this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The days after that meeting felt like a blur. I couldn't get the words, "she's more of a team player," out of my head. It echoed in my mind every time I walked into the office, every time I saw Jessica smiling, pretending she had earned that promotion. It wasn't just about the job. It was about respect, and I felt like I'd been robbed of it. As the days passed, my resentment grew. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how unfair everything had been. I had given my all to this company. I stayed late for deadlines, picked up extra shifts, and did everything I could to prove my worth. And for what? So Jessica, with her charm and lack of effort, could take my place. I found myself staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror one afternoon, barely recognizing the person looking back at me. Who was I anymore? Was I really just going to let this happen? Was this how it was always going to be? The reality hit hard. I had no control over what happened in that office, but I did have control over my own life. And if I let this moment break me, it would be the end of my story, not just at work, but in life itself. But what could I do? The system was rigged. The boss was always going to choose the one who kissed up the most. My hard work meant nothing when compared to someone who knew how to play the game. I spent hours, days even, thinking about it all. The anger simmered, but something else started to form inside me, a plan. I didn't want to just walk away and let it go. I wasn't going to be the person who got trampled on without a fight. So, I made up my mind. I wasn't going to go down without making them feel the consequences of their actions. It was time for my next move. And it wouldn't be easy. But one thing was clear: I was done being invisible. It wasn't an easy decision to make, but the more I thought about it, the more I knew it was the right one. The plan had been brewing in my mind for days. I was tired of being the person who accepted injustice silently. I wanted to make them pay, to show them that their actions would have consequences. But more importantly, I wanted to regain control of my life. I walked into the office on Monday morning with a new resolve. The usual chatter filled the air, But all I could focus on was the envelope in my hand, tucked deep in my bag. It was my resignation letter, but not just any resignation letter. It was my final statement, a declaration of independence, and a reminder that I was done playing by their rules. The moment I stepped into my boss's office, he looked up from his desk, that same smug smile on his face. I had always hated that smile, like he knew something I didn't. "Emma," he greeted me, his voice patronizing. "What's up? Everything all right?" I met his gaze without hesitation. "I need to speak with you," I said, my tone calm but firm. There was no fear in my voice, no hesitation. I had made up my mind. He raised an eyebrow, clearly thinking I was about to make a complaint about the promotion, but he was wrong. I wasn't there to beg or plead. I was there to take control of my future. I walked forward, placing the envelope on his desk. "I'm resigning," I said simply. His eyes widened in surprise, clearly not expecting this. "What? Why?" he stammered, sitting back in his chair. "You're one of our best employees. What's going on?" I stood there, staring at him for a moment, taking in his shock. I wasn't going to explain myself. I wasn't going to beg for his understanding. This wasn't about him, it was about me. I was taking back my power. "I've already made my decision," I said. "Thank you for the opportunity." I turned to walk out, but just before I reached the door, I spoke again, my voice steady and cold. "And by the way, that envelope contains something you won't be able to ignore." He froze. I could feel his gaze on my back as I walked out, leaving him with a sense of unease, a feeling he would never quite shake. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew one thing: this wasn't over. It had only just begun. I didn't sleep that night. My mind raced with thoughts of what would happen next. I had walked out of the office, leaving my boss with nothing but confusion and doubt, but I knew the real game had just begun. My resignation letter was only the beginning. Inside the envelope, hidden among the formalities of my resignation, was the true weapon, the documents that would shatter everything. The next morning, I received a call from my boss. He sounded desperate, his voice strained. "Emma, can we talk? This is getting out of hand." I didn't answer immediately. I knew what he wanted to convince me to come back, to apologize for being irrational, but I wasn't the same person anymore. I wasn't going to be manipulated, not this time. When I finally picked up the phone, I could hear the nervousness in his voice. "Please, Emma, let's just sit down and talk about this. I don't understand what you're trying to achieve with this." "You don't understand?" I repeated, my voice cold. "What I'm trying to achieve is something you'll never understand. I want my work to be valued. I want my effort to mean something. And most importantly, I want everyone to know what you've been doing behind closed doors." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could almost hear him struggling to find the right words. "What are you talking about?" he finally asked. I smiled, though I knew he couldn't see me. "Check your inbox," I said, before hanging up. For the next few hours, I waited. My heart beat faster with every passing minute, but I didn't doubt my decision. This wasn't about revenge, it was about making sure that the truth came out. Then, as I expected, I received a call from him again. This time, there was panic in his voice. "Emma, you can't do this. Those documents, those are private. You can't just expose them like this." "Private?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean the emails where you manipulated me, ignored my contributions, and gave credit for my work to Jessica? You mean the confidential files where you covered up illegal activities in the company? Oh, trust me, it's all out in the open now." I could feel the power shifting in my favor. For the first time in months, I felt like I had control over my life, over the situation. The documents I had sent exposed everything, the truth that had been hidden for so long. His empire was crumbling, and there was nothing he could do about it. "I'm not done yet," I said, my voice steady but filled with a newfound strength. "I'm going to make sure everyone knows the real story. You can't hide anymore." The line went dead, and for the first time in my life, I felt free. I had taken back my power, not just from my boss, but from the system that had kept me in the shadows for so long. Now, I just had to wait for the storm to hit. The days that followed were a whirlwind of media attention, legal calls, and tense meetings. I watched as everything I had set in motion began to unfold. My boss, once untouchable, now found himself facing multiple lawsuits, an investigation into the company's shady dealings, and a reputation in ruins. The world was watching as his empire crumbled, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction with every news report that came through. But it wasn't about revenge anymore. It had never been. I had set out to reclaim my worth, to show the world that silence and submission were no longer options for me. But with every victory, a part of me started to wonder, what now? I didn't regret my decision. I had done what needed to be done. But there was still a long road ahead. I had to rebuild, to find my place in a world where my efforts would finally be appreciated. The journey wasn't over, but the worst was behind me. One evening, a few weeks later, I received a message. It was from Jessica, the one who had been promoted in my place. The message was simple: I never knew. "I'm sorry." It didn't make everything right, but it was a step toward closure. Maybe she hadn't known about the manipulation. Maybe she had been just another pawn in his game, like I had been. Either way, I had no time for bitterness anymore. I was moving forward, stronger than I had ever been. As for my boss, he disappeared from the public eye, his name no longer synonymous with power and success. I had taken that from him. The moment I walked away, I stepped into my own future, one where I called the shots, where my worth wasn't decided by anyone else. The world had seen what I was capable of, and it wasn't going to forget. And as for me, I was done being invisible.